Hi, I'm Caroline Dunn, and today I'm going to talk you through some styles of deadlift. Now, a deadlift is an incredible move that is the foundation of a lot of people's workouts and workout programs. So why would you want to do a deadlift? It is amazing for working your posterior chain, which is the back of your body. And the first deadlift that I'm going to show you is usually the one that you'd spot if you walked into a gym and people were deadlifting. It's the most common variety, and the reason why it is such a foundational move is it actually works every muscle in your body. It does have a primary focus of working the hamstrings, the glutes and the lower back, but it also works your upper back, your core, your arms, the whole of the rest of your body. So I'm going to first of all show you body weight, run through the primary cues, and then we'll look at some variations of that. Okay, so let's start down, moving on up. So the feet, first of all, are about hip distance. So that's usually narrower than most people's squats with the toes pointing forwards. From here, as we deadlift, our knees will bend and our hips slide back. We're going to suck up the belly button up towards the spine, suck up the pelvic floor as well before we go anywhere. Then also imagine for me that someone has crept up behind you, gone to tickle your armpits, and immediately you go and clench them. So we're going to call that cue resist the tickle. We resist the tickle before we deadlift. Okay? You're also going to imagine that you have a tennis ball or similar, a small ball underneath your chin, and that's going to help you keep a little bit of length in the neck. You're looking down and out a little bit. Okay? Our weights are going to hang in front of us. So the arms don't bend, they don't pull, they don't push. All they're doing is they're having the weight hanging from them. For this first body weight move, then you can imagine they're going to slide up and down your legs. So a deadlift looks like this. We breathe in, our hips hinge back. Our torso starts to move more parallel to the ground, so you can see that we come into this little tuck position, clenching the armpits. And then as you exhale, press through the ground as though you're standing either side of a crack, and at that crack in the ground, you're trying to push it apart with the feet. So the feet drive into the ground, the knees drive apart. So again, that looks like this. We hinge down, breath in, hinge up. Now you will see people starting from the top and the bottom of this move, depending on their goals. If you are starting to work with quite a heavy weight for you, you'd probably start from the ground. Now, common places where things can go wrong in your deadlift. First of all, knees. So potentially you don't send your hips too far enough back, and therefore your knees are still sticking out a little bit and they get in the way of your weight. So this is how it should look. You can see there that my hands track just in front of the knees as I deadlift. If I don't send my hips back enough, then can you see my knees start to creep forwards? Another thing that can go wrong, in inverted commas, is you might see someone struggling to keep that long spine. That's maybe because they haven't activated their lats enough at the bottom, so resist that tickle, take a breath in, exhale, drive up. Okay? Now, if you are at home or if at your gym you can't get your hands on a bar, or you're just not ready for a bar yet, what can you use? So one option is to use a long resistance band. And these come in various different strengths, and some of them can get pretty difficult. So what we do is we take each side, what is that? Each length of the band, and then we're going to come to stand on the band. So again, we set up with feet hip distance, toes pointing forwards, and then you're going to start from the bottom. So you're going to crouch down, gather up the band. The more tension there is, the harder it is. Okay, so we find that little crouch, we send our hips back, we resist the tickle, belly button lifted, pelvic floor lifted. Take a breath in, and then as you exhale, drive up to stand. Inhale, you'll feel that the band slackens off. Exhale, there's the most tension there at the top. If you don't have a band, no problem. You might use a small weight. Here, I've got 2 dumbbells, but you could also use 1. Same thing, the dumbbells come in front or just off to the side. Breath in, hinge back. Breath out, come back up. And final one here is a kettlebell. So this kettlebell can sit in the middle of your feet, like this. And again, we're going to start at the bottom for this variation. So you take hold, send your hips back, come into your crouch. As you exhale, drive up. Now, some people might find that kettlebell, because there's some height to it, might start to change your deadlift. You don't want to come too far down like this and start rounding in. Stay to about your mid-shin. And exhale, drive up. How many times can I say that? Okay, now we have 2 more variations for you that you might want to just throw into your workout for a different challenge, to target different muscles, and to get the sides of your body working individually. So the next one is a stiff-legged deadlift. And everyone gets these confused all the time, so do not worry about that. So the primary difference between a deadlift and a stiff-legged deadlift is that the stiff-legged deadlift is going to isolate your glutes and your hamstrings much, much more. Now, in terms of what your knees are doing, that's probably the biggest difference. The knees actually are soft, so they're not fully locked out like this. They have a very slight bend. And then all of the movement then comes from the hips. So the hips slide back and then come back up. So once the knees are soft, there's then no more bend added into those legs. Little bend at the knee, big bend at the hip. And I will put a quick caveat in this that my hamstrings are quite open. I do a lot of yoga, so the depth of my stiff leg deadlift might be very different from yours. It doesn't matter as long as you can feel your hamstrings working. You want to keep that activation in your upper body, the squeezing of the armpits. So maybe a much smaller move suits you. You take it nice and slowly on the way down, exhale back up. So again, with a weight, that might look like this. You tend to start at the top for a stiff leg deadlift. Feet are still hip distance, toes pointing forwards, belly button to spine, clench your armpits. Slide your hips back, knees stay exactly as they are, exhale, hinge back up. And if you're doing this with me now, and I recommend you at least have a test rep, can you feel that difference? How much more that is making your glutes and your hamstrings work? Okay, and I promised you one more. So the final style of deadlift that we're going to look at today is a single leg deadlift. Now this is actually one of my favorites, and there's 2 different ways that we can have a go at it. Now first of all, you kind of want to work the sides of your body separately because you will have a dominant side. Like you'll be right-handed, you'll be left-handed, you'll brush your teeth, you'll get out of bed, you'll drive all on one side, usually the same side. So starting to work those single sides starts to balance that out and make sure that you're developing each side of the body's strength in a similar way. So a single leg deadlift is going to start with 1 foot forwards and 1 foot back. Now, similarly to the stiff leg deadlift, this standing front leg is soft and the movement all comes from the hips. Now, depending on your legs, this could look very different. Rather than one leg being behind the other, you might step one out so that actually your feet are on train tracks, they are hip distance. Depending on the size of your legs, you might prefer a wider or a narrower stance. Same action now. Your hips slide back and exhale, come back up. This front leg again isn't fully locked out, it's slightly soft. This back leg is bending just to achieve the hip hinge so that your hips can go backwards. Hips back, armpits clenched, exhale, come back up. And again, we can add weight into that. So you might hold 1 or 2 dumbbells, 2 small weights. You can also do this with a band or a kettlebell. Clench the armpits, belly button to spine. Inhale, hips slide back. Exhale, come back up. Again, it does not need to be as big a move as mine. And then, of course, swap over and do the other side. Hips slide back and come back up. There we go. And there is a final version of that stiff leg deadlift. I definitely recommend you do this one body weight first. If I have a favourite, can I even choose a favourite? It's a toss-up between the deadlift I showed you at the start, the conventional deadlift, and this version I'm going to show you. And I'm a bit biased because being a yoga teacher, this kind of echoes Warrior 3, which is probably why I love it so much. Now this version is going to work your stability muscles just a little bit more because our back leg is going to float off. So that means our standing leg, our ankle and our knee and our core is going to need to fight to keep us stable. If you're starting for the first time, hold on. Try not to hold on for dear life. Keep as light a touch as you can. We're now going to plug one hip back into its sockets. So rather than sticking out a hip this way, we're just taking this top of the leg up into the socket, top of the femur in. And then from here, flex the foot. Breath in, hinge forwards. Breath out, hinge back up. And these two parts of your body need to counterlever it. So as your torso comes down, your leg is going to need to come up. And if those two don't move together, you won't get that nice, smooth, straight line where one bit of your body isn't limiting the other part. So again, that looks like this. Breath in, hinge forwards. Breath out, hinge back up. It certainly helps also to fix your gaze on something that isn't moving. In yoga, we'd call that a drishti. You can add weight into that if you're comfortable taking your hands off your supports. So you might hold to start off with a weight into the same arm as the standing leg, the leg that's working, glute and hamstring. You might also like a little bit of variation where you put the weight into the opposite leg that is working. Slightly different, your core is just going to work in slightly different ways to counteract and deal with that weight. Flex the foot. Breath in, hinges forwards, and breath out, back up. And there you have it. Can you tell how much I love deadlifting? And I hope you do too. So head down to the comments, let me know all of your deadlifting questions. I can't wait to help you out.